flag.
I was just thinking that. I was
We
just
have
thinking,
one?
where did I put my phone? I think, hang on. I have one on my phone somewhere. Let me see if I can find it.
Steve could draw us one real quickly. These are
Yeah, do you
artists.
wanna draw us one?
I need 5 new members.
Ah, I found it. Ah. All right. We're running a little late today, so we're going to get started. And if everyone would mute themselves, I'm going to hold up this flag and we will all say the Pledge of Allegiance together. Let's see if I can get my hand right and hold this up. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to our Toastmaster for today, Ms. Selena Danko. Woo.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm going to be brief this evening just because I am a little unprepared. So tonight, my responsibility is to introduce today's speakers. Thank you, Kathleen, for sending me your introduction. I did find that in my emails. And after the speeches have concluded, I will ask for the timer's report, request ballots be passed to our vote counter, introduce the general evaluator, ask the awe counter for their report, ask the grammarian for their report. I'm sorry, I'm reading all this, and call the vote counter for results. I will then return control of the meeting back over to the president. So that's what I will be doing today. Skipping back over to the agenda. So I want to introduce my team of evaluators this evening. And I'm hoping that our general evaluator is on the call. Dean Karath, can you explain your duties for this evening?
I can. And I will also take the lead in introducing the evaluation team.
Thank you.
But before we get any farther, how about a joke of the day if anyone has one? If not, I have one.
I've got one.
Okay, go ahead.
Little Johnny joke. 80% of those are nasty, but this is a pretty good one. Little Johnny's at school and he's got his friend Billy says, I told my dad last night, I said, I know what you did. And he gave me $20. So you might try that. So little Johnny goes home and they're cleaning up the kitchen and putting the dishes away and tells his mom, Mom, I know what you did. She goes, you do? Here's $20. Don't tell Dad. So he finds Dad and he says, Dad, I know what you did. He goes, you do? Well, here's $40. Don't tell Mom. He's going, wow, this is working great. He's on his way to school and he runs into the mailman. He goes, let's try it. Tells the mailman, I know what you did. He goes, you do? Well, come here and give Daddy a hug then.
Okay, back to introducing the evaluation team. My role as general evaluator will be to provide an overall evaluation of the meeting. And if I have time, I usually offer a few comments on everybody's role for those that run the meeting. It seems like it's a little known fact that the general evaluator can also provide feedback to the evaluators because they often don't get it. So first, I want to call upon, I guess Barbara's here, good. Call upon Barbara to explain the objectives of Kathleen's speech.
I apologize.
General Evaluator Dean, that I am not 100% prepared right this minute. I was planning to be at home and I have all my printouts there. So I apologize to only the General Evaluator, to everyone else. So I do know that Kathleen is giving a 2.5-minute speech tonight. Is that correct, Kathleen? And that I'll be
2 and 3.
what? 2.5 to 3, and that I will be evaluating that speech. And this member is completing, again, her 2.5 to 3 minute. The goal of the evaluation is to give the member an effective evaluation of her speech and delivery style. And yes, I am sorry, but I will, before I dig a bigger hole.
What is the timing for the timer who will need that?
So it's, if I may, Dean, it's 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, 2 to 3. Okay. Got it.
The timer's on board.
Okay. The general evaluator missed that. The next evaluator is Mary Syrie, who will be evaluating Jackie's speech. Please tell us about your Jackie's objectives and what you will be evaluating.
Thank you, Dean. Jackie will be delivering her brilliant and award-winning contest speech that she gave on Saturday. Let's all say, yay, Jackie. A lot of us were there, and that was really fun to watch Jackie and all the other contestants. So she's on to District 9. So I'm going to pretend, not that I'm an evaluator, but I'm going to pretend I'm a judge. I'm going to pretend I don't know Jackie, never heard the speech before. I'm not familiar with her delivery or anything. So Lloyd thoughtfully sent judges' criteria to me, and that's what I'm going to use. I suggest you do the same in your written evaluation to Jackie. Here's the criteria. 50% of the scoring is based on content, speech development, effectiveness, how well she connected with the audience, and the value of her speech. 30% is on delivery, how she looks, how her voice carries, her manner. Language is 20%, appropriateness and correctness of her language. This is a 5 to 7 minute speech. Back to you, Mr. GE.
Thank you, Mary. Next, I want to introduce Steve Schwind to talk about his timer duties.
Thank you, Dean, Mr. GE. Jackie, you're 5 to 7 on your speech, I believe, right? Okay. We have a desire as speakers to deliver a succinct and meaty, informative speech. And part of the key is to stay within a time limit to enhance our effectiveness in delivering our message. My job tonight will be to monitor everyone's speaking roles and let them know how they've done in their respective time slots. Kathleen's speech tonight is 2 to 3 minutes, and she will see the green clock at 2 minutes. She will see a yellow clock at 2 minutes 30 and a red clock at 3 minutes. Jackie's speech will be 5 to 7 minutes. She'll see the green at 5, yellow at 6, and red at 7 minutes. In each of their speaking roles, they have 30 seconds in which to wrap up. Mary will be, and Barbara will be doing, whoa, where'd everybody go? Can you guys see me?
Yep.
We can see you. I can see
Oh,
you.
good heavens, I bumped something. I'm sorry. Everybody disappeared.
I can hear you too.
Awesome. Well, good news. Mary and Barbara will be doing speech evaluations. They too are 2 to 3 minutes, and they will see the green at 2, yellow at 2:30, and 3 minutes will be red. And then finally, our table topics tonight will run 1 to 2 minutes, and at 1 minute, green, 1:30 is yellow, and 2 minutes is red. I'll keep track of everyone's speaking time and report on how they did at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, I want to call upon Christina Stepper to introduce the word of the day and tell us about her grammarian role.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I would like to direct everyone's attention to the chat box for just a moment. The word of the day is alacrity. Alacrity. Brisk and cheerful readiness. In this sentence, Jackie prepared for her speech with great alacrity. Cheerful readiness. She delivered it with great alacrity as well. I will also be listening for exceptional uses of grammar as well as egregious uses of grammar. I will make note of those, share them when called upon to do so. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Christina. With considerable alacrity, I will move on to the final part of introducing our evaluation team, which is our counter. Eric Stepper, please explain your role counting O's.
Thank you, Mr. Jean, evaluator. One of the primary functions in my mind of Toastmasters meetings is to get rid of all those filler words that make us just cringe. The ahs, the ums, the ers, connecting sentences with and so, repetitions, starting sentences with well, but. So my job is to keep track of all those and get a report at the end of the meeting, and I will do so. Thank you, General Evaluator.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And I'll return control of the meeting back to Selena, our Toastmaster.
Thank you, General Evaluator Dean Carath. I am pleased to introduce Kathleen as our first speaker this evening. She is at level 4 of our innovative planning track. Level 4 teaches us how to manage projects successfully. And today, with great alacrity, Kathleen is going to tell us about her new boyfriend and her Toastmasters project, which is aimed at managing the new boyfriend, because all boyfriends should be managed. Welcome, Kathleen, as she shares her project with a speech titled, "It's Time for a Divorce, or at least a Separation." Over to you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. During COVID, I made a new best friend. He has very sharp wit. He's clever. He does great videos. He also has a very catchy last name. I like him so much, I allowed him to insert himself between me and lots of my family and friends. Mr. Zoom. It's Mr. Zoom who has inserted himself between me and my family and friends. I like him so much, perhaps even more than my children, but not more than my dog. I think, though, it's time to work on a separation, possibly a divorce. It will be amicable, but it could take a few months or even a few years. Are you ready to join me on the trek to disengage ourselves and disentangle ourselves with alacrity from Zoom and Mr. Zoom? My project is about Toastmasters and how we can have hybrid meetings. As a project, it has 3 parts. The first part is the purpose, there's the team, and there's the deliverable. For the purpose, we are going to identify some options for hybrid meetings. The team I am joined by Selena Danko, Dean Karath, and Pat Whitfield. We are the team Zoomerang. As for the deliverables, we are going to make a recommendation to this Toastmasters Club about hybrid meetings and options that might work for us. Sounds very straightforward. What could go wrong? Already, someone has approached me and said, maybe we should add some other things to our list of what we're going to look at. If you're a project manager, you know what this is. It's a big no-no, scope creep. I was a project manager for many years. The other thing that can go wrong with projects are assumptions. For example, I'm assuming that most of us would come to a hybrid meeting, but maybe we wouldn't. Maybe I'd be there by myself. Madam President, I would ask you if you could, before we finish up our meeting today, to do a little poll so that we can make sure that we have the right assumption before we launch this project. Assuming we're correct and people do want to get back together in hybrid meetings, our team will get going and we will do our research. We'll be back in a few weeks. I'll be back with a longer speech, but we'll also be back with a recommendation on how we can begin the process of disentangling from our friend, Mr. Zoom. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Kathleen, to your wonderful introduction to this project that you're working on and taking us on a journey of a new format and a journey of separation and then maybe togetherness. Could we have a minute to offer some feedback for Kathleen, please? Mr. Timer.
That would be a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. And now we move on to our second speech of the evening. We're going to hear from our award-winning speech maker, Jackie Graybill. She will be giving us another version of her speech that's even, I'm going to create a sin here, but I'm going to say more perfect than the last time. Take it away, Jackie Graybill.
Sorry, just a second. I did the wrong view. Okay. I apologize. I had reached the end of the security checkpoint at the airport. And this was impressive because I did the whole thing while holding a leash. At the end of the leash, my furry little service dog named Tyrion. Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests, I faced off at that bin. I grabbed my shoes and wrangled them on, and I grabbed my coat and I put it on. And then I realized something was missing, something important. My boarding pass. Where was it? I went up to the TSA gentleman that worked there and told him what had happened. He looked at me and he was more stressed than I was. This is how he sounded. I heard 4 words in the middle of that gobbledygook. Boarding, pass, gate, print. A little while later, Tyrion and I were at gate C20, waiting to talk to a pleasant-looking gentleman named Frank. He took my ID. Oh, ma'am, I see you have a service dog. Is that, oh, hello, is that your service dog? Yes, this is Tyrion. I am sure they made an instant connection. Probably because he looks like a little teddy bear. Here's what I'm going to do. We're not even going to worry about printing out your boarding pass. When we board shortly, I will just let you board first to give you extra time to get settled with your service dog. And because this is Southwest, you can sit anywhere. I was so excited. I had never sat in the front row before. Tyrion and I settled into our window seat and waited to see who was going to sit next to us in that middle seat and that aisle seat. Eventually, a really pleasant looking couple came and asked if they could sit next to us. Of course. By the way, my name is Jackie. Hi, my name is Megan, and this is Scott. What's your puppy's name? Can I pet him? He seems so sweet. His name is Tyrion. Tyrion? From Game of Thrones? Scott, Game of Thrones! I knew this is going to be an amazing flight. Until I did something incredibly stupid. I said 4 words. Actually, I looked excitedly at Megan's belly, and then I said 4 words. When are you due? Oh, I'm not pregnant. I'm just fat. I felt so bad and apologized profusely. Then I wished with all my might that the earth would open up and swallow me whole. Except, then who would take care of Tyrion? I cuddled up to my window and looked out. We weren't even moving yet. This is a great start. And I crawled in my shell. Oh, it should have been safe under there, but it wasn't. It was brutal. Under there, I was beating myself up. That was so stupid. Why did you say that? You're a horrible, mean person. Then he looked down at Tyrion. He had his head on Megan's lap. And it was as if he looked up at me and said, Mommy, come out of your shell and connect. In my head, he has a British accent. Don't ask me why. So I decided to do the hard thing and try to connect with Megan. It wasn't easy. She was very reticent to talk to me. That made absolute sense. But she started telling me a little of her story. And she asked me why Tyrion was a service dog. I decided to be vulnerable and tell her my story. And then we had an amazing breakthrough because we realized that both of us had escaped abusive relationships and were on our healing journey. This was incredible. And the energy in that plane just started rising as we started talking about it. And she was telling me about resources that I had never heard of. I was telling her about books that she had never heard of. It was amazing. That was the most magical conversation I have ever had on a flight. But it wouldn't have happened if I had stayed in my shell. I wish in that moment that I could have taken it back. so many of us say or do things we wish we could take back. For instance, the answer to that table topics question, mispronouncing that word of the day. But we can't take back anything we say or do. What we can do is choose what we do next. Are we going to stay in our shell? Or are we going to come out and decide to connect? And in this age of social distancing, where we're very rusty at connecting, that's more important than ever. So I invite you, and I invite myself, next time we say and do things we wish we could take back, that we crawl out of our shell, be gentle to ourselves, and decide to connect. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And with great alacrity, I'd like to call on our timer to give us a minute to give Jackie some great feedback for her next delivery of this speech.
I've been using great alacrity to carefully count those seconds, not even using my timepiece, relying on the skill of identifying the minutes and seconds ticking by. That'll be a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. Now I would like to turn the conversation over to our table topics master for the evening, Pat Whitfield. Take it away.
Thank you very much. When I looked at the theme of strength and weaknesses, it caused me to think of all of the evaluations I've seen on the news today about the strengths and weaknesses of President Biden in his first 100 days. So it caused me to think even further about leadership. When I was still an academic, I used to teach classes at the graduate level in leadership. And one of my favorite books was this one. It's Leading Minds, An Anatomy of Leadership by Howard Gardner. And in it, he cited very different group of leaders from politics, from the military, from academia, people like Martin Luther King and Margaret Mead, Eleanor Roosevelt, Margaret Thatcher, Mahatma Gandhi, and so on. So what I did was I chose from each chapter a quotation that identifies either a strength or weakness. And I thought it would be nice to give you the opportunity to respond to that, whether you agree that it's a strength or a weakness as it's applied to our society. So Selena, I'm going to start with you. This is a quote from Margaret Mead. You know, she's an anthropologist of great fame. And she said, "I have spent most of my life studying the lives of other peoples, faraway peoples, so that Americans might better understand themselves." Do you think it is a strength of our culture to understand other cultures or not?
Thank you for that question, Madam Table Topics Master. I think it's definitely a strength to understand cultures that are different from what we experience every day. It gives us an opportunity to see things through the eyes of people who maybe have experienced different experiences in their lives. For instance, when I was able to travel to other countries, I was able to see things a lot differently just in terms of poverty. Going to China gave me a whole different perception of what it was like to not have a lot of money. I thought I didn't have a lot of money, but when I got to see what was happening in another country, I realized that poverty is very relative and richness is what you make of life. So I think that it's definitely makes our life richer to know what's happening in other societies around the world. Back to you, Mrs. Table Topics Master.
Thank you. Thank you. The next quote I have is from J. Robert Oppenheimer. He was the person who was primarily responsible for the Manhattan Project. He was an internationally known physicist. He was interested in ethics and society. And here is a quote from him. Lloyd, the question will be for you. My friends, both in Pasadena and in Berkeley, were mostly faculty people, scientists, classicists, and artists. I studied and read Sanskrit with Arthur Ryder. I read very widely, mostly classics, novels, plays, and poetry, and I read something of other parts of science. I was not interested in and did not read about economics or politics. I was almost totally divorced from the contemporary scene in this country. I never read a newspaper or a current magazine like Time or Harper's. I was interested in man and his experience, but I had no understanding of the relationship of man to his society. Do you think that Oppenheimer was depriving himself of necessary knowledge to enhance his strength in functioning in society or not, Lloyd?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I think he clearly was. Oppenheimer was an extremely bright guy, seriously considered for the Nobel Prize in Physics more than once. But he was one of those extremely bright guys who was, as he learned more and more about his subject, his field of vision became narrower and narrower. It's kind of like that old joke that a PhD is somebody who knows everything about almost nothing at all. And Oppenheimer got himself into that spot. I think his mistake was not understanding that all of those subject area things are extremely important, extremely useful, but they don't mean anything unless it can be applied somehow to other people. In other words, how people are organized or what they do or what they think is important. His crowning achievement, depending on your point of view, was to be the father of the atomic bomb. And he was good at it. He was so single-minded that he could do it. But he was, until the moment that he set the first one off in the Alamogordo Desert in New Mexico, he didn't really realize, and he said himself, that he didn't really understand what it was that they had created. You know, this incredible explosion that was going to change the world forever. I mean, that was one of those genies that could not be put back inside the bottle once it was let out. And he, for the rest of his life, he actually regretted doing it. So I think that generally speaking, he is correct, that he should have kept his field of view a bit wider to take in the human interactions along with the subject matter expertise. He knew a lot about a lot of things, but he didn't know enough about some things. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next person who was written about was Robert Maynard Hutchins, who became president of the University of Chicago when he was only 30 years old. And at that time, there was a lot of conflict at the University of Chicago. So this is a newspaper quotation about higher ed. Almost any education person can deliver a lecture entitled The Goals of the University. Almost no one will listen to the lecture voluntarily. For the most part, such lectures and their companion essays are well-intentioned exercises in social rhetoric with little operational content. Efforts to generate normative statements of the goals of a university tend to produce goals that are either meaningless or dubious. Christina, right now, students are urged to, or potential university students are urged to reconsider their ambitions to go to university because it costs so much and they might not make as much money as they're paying. What do you think about that?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Students, I believe, need a wider world perspective. Degree oftentimes does not lead to work in the field in which one earns one's degree, but it does provide world perspective. It provides opportunity to learn to get along with a wider group of people. It provides the opportunity to be self-motivated. It provides opportunities to meet people from various cultures and different countries. If students understood all the rich value that comes from earning a degree, that would be a great start. I would also encourage high school students to take advantage of Running Start programs where they could conceivably earn 2 years of college education without having to pay for it. I would also encourage students to apply for scholarships. I, as a junior at University of Washington, went down to the registrar's office back when there were pegboards with postings of scholarships. I found one, the William Randolph Hearst Memorial Scholarship. I applied for it. I was stunned. I got it. And it paid for my entire senior year, including part of my room and board, all of my books, all of my tuition. There were so many scholarships on that board that went unapplied for. If students do a little work, a little groundwork, they'll be surprised at opportunities that are there, people who want to help them succeed. Those are things I would encourage students with. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. The next chapter in the book is written by George Marshall, a very famous general in our history, modern history, Second World War and thereabouts. And his chapter is called The Embodiment of the Good Soldier. Here is Field Marshal Montgomery's comment on leadership. My own definition of leadership is this: the capacity and the will to rally men and women in a common purpose, and the character which inspires confidence. Mary, the United States military has been involved in many conflicts throughout the world. Do you believe that it has been a strength and shown leadership in the world and to rally people to a common purpose, or not?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to pass. I've been heads down on this judgment evaluation for Jackie. So I'm gonna pass on that one, Pat. Did you hear me?
I could hear you.
Pat, you're muted.
Well, I'm just saying that I've been heads down on my evaluation, so I would like to pass.
I understood that, and I didn't realize I was muted. I was trying to be polite to you. Steve, I'll put the question to you. Do you believe it has been a strength of our military or a weakness in terms of our influence around the world, particularly in the last quarter century.
I almost feel like I'd like to pass on that too, because I don't know if I've got that much depth, but I think our might in the world has been substantial. It's been well respected. And I think we've accomplished a lot. I think it's interesting in these current times that not only our recent past leadership having been a bull in a china shop, there's suggestions that even further back, the selfish little United States of America has just been having it its way, and everybody's been afraid to speak up internationally because they might get slapped down for their critical evaluation of what we as a country have done worldwide. In my mind, the United States of America has done a lot of good things over the years. And I think the reality is that there's a lot of self-serving. We have self-serving interests. They drive our boat a little bit, but I think a lot of other countries have had self-serving interests, and they've been happy to hold their hand out and receive the benefits that our country has offered. As far as military might, I guess it's a good control measure. It's not exactly the best way to say that, I guess, but it's allowed us to impose influences. And I think particularly with some of the more dubious members of the international community, I think of late, we're probably not as effective as we once were as world leaders. And I hope that we can bring that back around. Thank you for a challenging question, Ms. Table Topics Master.
My clock says we have time for one more. This would come from a chapter on Eleanor Roosevelt, ordinariness and extraordinariness. And here is a comment from someone. What are the defining characteristics of a leader? At the top of the list, in my view, is the ability to inspire his own generation and generations to come. You can tell this was written a while ago because of the possessive pronoun is gender oriented. With a zest for living and a sense of high possibilities for this country and mankind in the future. Eric, do you think that our leadership has been characterized by a zest for living and a sense of high possibility for our country and others in terms of a strength, or is it a weakness?
To Table Topics Master, it's tough to have such generalizations. I think the United States as a whole and for our history has been very positive and forward thinking. Lots of our presidents are been very positive, and you have to be positive to a certain extent to lead people. And I think that we've manifested that. There's a lot of negativity that goes into that, but as far as a generalization, I would say be positive in order to gain the confidence of other countries. They want to know that there's solutions, that we're working towards solutions, have a positive frame of mind towards those solutions. Like for an example, I like to, especially as I'm retired, I like to get up and fix coffee and tea for my wife. And I fix it with some supplements and also with ghee because it's a good source of fat. And when I got up this morning, there was plenty of coffee, but there was a lack of tea. So I just rolled with it and went next door and borrowed some and just kept going on. That showed the leadership in our household. Thank you, Table Topics Master.
That was a very creative and original response that showed your strength in playing with words. I turn it Now, your answers have been so astute and thoughtful. I turn it back to our general evaluator, Dean.
Dean, are
Okay,
you
thanks.
prepared to
Yes,
take
I'm
the-
here. You caught me a little bit by surprise because the agenda said it should go back to Selena and then to me, but we can skip that step just fine if once I've woken up. Thank you. First part of our evaluation session is to have Barbara evaluate Kathleen's speech. Barbara, you're up.
Thank you, General Evaluator. Kathleen, I hope I found the right paperwork to evaluate you. It says about the speech that you will, the member will deliver a well-organized speech on any topic and incorporate feedback from his or her previous speech evaluation, which I didn't catch, but so I will say it was definitely well-organized. I did enjoy your use of humor. I believe we were all at the edge of our seat wondering to know who your boyfriend was. So, and to find out that it's Zoom. Might have been a little let down for all of us, maybe not, I don't know. But we can all agree and relate that we are all sick of the relationship with Zooms. We can all relate. I think you had throughout the speech, Kathleen, you had great eye contact. You were well prepared. The speech was informational. You talked about the team that you've developed that will lead our club back to in-person meetings or hybrid thereof. Again, I liked your play on words. And you tied that, right after that, you tied that into the subject matter of your project and then explained what the next steps would be. So in understanding that, that's why your speech was 2 to 3 minutes, because again, you're going to be bringing that project back to us on a solution. And as somebody who hopefully can be a part of that solution, I know that you're already working on it since you reached out to me. Anyways, that is my evaluation. Thank you, Kathleen, for your speech and for working on this very important project for our club. Back to you, General Evaluator Dean.
Oops. Thank you, Barbara. Next, I would like to call upon Mary to evaluate Jackie's speech. Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Dean. I'm going to go right down these judging items. And I tell you what, folks, this has made the evaluation much easier. Usually it's, God, everything was great, Jackie. I don't know what to say. This outline was really helpful. I'm going to start with the things that I really love about this speech. I like the speech value, and this is worth 15 out of 100 points. The speech value is your responsibility to say something meaningful and original to the audience. So this wasn't one of those big earth-shaking moments where, you know, a big catastrophe happened in somebody's life and here's how they got through it. This is about one of those things that we all do, this social faux pas that you say and you just wish you could roll back time. You address that, and it's something that we can all relate to. It's just, it's that little thing. And look, Jackie, who's so polished, she's just so pretty up there on the stage, and she's got this presence, and you know, she really put her foot in her mouth there, didn't she? You just, it's just something that brings us all in. I like the value of that speech and the effectiveness of your speech too. Was I able to determine the speaker's purpose? Did the speech relate to that purpose? And I think your purpose was to help us all recover from those faux pas. Your example and, you know, the frantic approach you had to the aircraft and getting there all brought us in, and we felt the energy. So effectiveness and speech value, you're doing really well. Here's where I had some problem, and this is the big one because it's speech development, 20 points. It's your introduction. It's that first sentence. I missed it at contest and I missed it again today. And so I wasn't sure exactly what that was. And just to make sure, I put my hearing aids in today. first time in about 5 months I've put these things in. So I was listening well. And we can talk about that first sentence or that introduction if you want, you know, using Mr. Zoom sometime this week. But I think that might be a problem with your speeches. Oh dear, I have to start talking faster. And the 4 words that you talked about from the first guy, boarding pass, print. I didn't get that either. Okay. Moving down to correctness in word selection, you had some opportunities. You had word like reticent and some really great words in there, but you leaned toward the camera and you said, I did something stupid. Find something else, find mortifying. Look, you know, do a little thesaurus work on the word stupid. Let's see if you can have something with more impact. And if you've got words like incredible or amazing or awesome, I didn't hear awesome, but if you've got those kind of words, find something with a little more punch. That's on correctness. And C, the voice. I'm sorry, not C, but voice is worth 10 points. You're so good with voices. When you talked about Megan's reaction to your, what do you do? It was heartbreaking. Poor Megan. So keep all that in there, but just maybe slow down at the beginning so that we really get, so that you can more effectively set the stage of being at the airport and being all flustered and trying to get on board. And then, oh, happy day, you got to sit in the front row. I'm looking at my notes. I think that's it. I think that's it. You know, these aren't huge things, but they could make the difference at contest. So work on the intro, your few word selections, and see what other people said in their evaluations of you. And best of luck. Best of luck. You do us proud. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mary. Next, I want to call upon Steve Schwinn to give us the timers report. Steve, please spew out some numbers.
Thank you. 5, 9, 3, 8.
Time numbers.
Toastmasters is such a great thing because it truly teaches us good speaking skills, and the alacrity of our speakers is very apparent tonight, up to the end. Tonight, Kathleen's speech was 3:05. Jackie, 6:53. Squeaked it right under the fence. Well done. In table topics, Selena was 1:16. Lloyd was 1:40. Christina, 2:07. Steve was 2:09. And Eric was 1:27. Wrapped up his point quickly. Our speech evaluators, Barbara, new record for short, 1:39. I'd love to know how to do that. I was more in line with what Mary did tonight. She kind of balanced you out at 4:41. That is our speaking times. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, I want to call upon Christina to give us the grammarian's report. Christina, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Excellent job on using the word of the day. Dean used it once, Selena twice, Kathleen once, Steve twice. Eric, either once and a half or maybe a half. I'm not quite sure on that. For grammar, there were a number of words and phrases that I appreciated this evening. Steve, the word succinct, and the phrase, they drive our boat. Kathleen coined 2 new terms, Mr. Zoom and Zoomerang. Also use the word amicable. And I like the phrase disentangling from Mr. Zoom. Jackie, the phrase "it was brutal," the term reticent, and the phrase magical conversation. Those all stood out to me. Pat used the phrase "when I was still an academic," and the word astute. Barbara, on the edge of our seat, and hybrid thereof. I like that. Mary, social faux pas. And Dean brought up the end with "spew out some numbers." Excellently done, everyone. Thank you for using the word of the day and for your participation. I will turn it back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Christina. Last but not least, I want to call upon Eric to give us the counter report.
Thank you,
Eric.
General Evaluator. Dean, you had an "I guess," and you had one "and," but you've had a big part of this meeting, and that's a very excellent job. Christina, I had nothing. Lloyd, you had 5 uhs, and starting sentence with an "and," "but," "so," "you know," and you had an "I mean." Mary, you were very clean till the end, and then you had a couple ums, starting sentences with "and" a couple of times, "but," "so." You had a "you know," and you had a "yeah" instead of "you." Steve, out. Kathleen, you had a speech. I got nothing. I thought I was listening, but that was great. Pat, you had 4 uhs, starting sentences with "and" "so," "you know." Selena, you had a big part, and you had started a sentence with "and" once, and you had a couple of "so's." Jackie, big speech. You had 1 "and," 1 "so." That "gonna" did creep in there, and you had "accept" instead of "accept," and it may Zoom some kind times cuts those off, but look at that, especially because it's a contest speech. Barbara, you had a lot of ahs and ums and so's. I appreciate you stepping in and not having all your notes and all that kind of stuff because they're at home. That's a big ask. Now, if that's the situation, attend the meeting, but you can ask Lloyd or I to step in and do an evaluation or whatever, because yeah, that's my report.
Thank you, Eric. Since we're over time, I'll limit my comments. We did start a bit late. I think part of that is because some of you were unable to be here right at start time. I encourage all of you to log on about 5:25. So we have a little bit of time to commiserate, make sure everything's in working order. I really appreciate the joke of the day. That's new to our meeting from when I used to attend in person, and I highly approve. I just listened to a podcast yesterday about how important humor is to our mental health. It can be used to liven up our speeches. It can be used to break the ice in confrontational situations. It's a whole range of uses. Audiences will be more receptive to your message if they're laughing than if they're angry. So keep that in mind. Please continue to practice your humorous skills at Toastmasters and everywhere else. To help mitigate the problems of not having your notes, it's always helpful to prepare the night before and then carry them with you in case you think that you might have something come up during the day. I know that's perhaps a lot to ask. I know things happen, but Toastmasters are always prepared, right? And finally, I really enjoyed the table topics. They were very challenging, but leadership is such an important area. It benefits all of us to think about it. Thank you for that. And I turn the meeting back to the president, Jackie.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. We are, like Dean said, running a little bit over, so let's go ahead and send our votes to Lloyd. Can we send them to Lloyd?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Send our votes for Speaker of the Evening to Lloyd. And while we do that, Kathleen has asked me to give an informal or requested me to do an informal poll asking who is interested in hybrid meetings. Is that, am I
Yeah,
correct
and the
in
question
saying
is really, I think we're all interested in hybrid meetings, but would you actually come to the in-person part of it?
that? Oh, okay.
I mean, assuming we
Okay.
have social distancing and we can meet all of the
Right.
public health requirements, would you
Right.
come, or would you rather just stay in the comfort of your home?
Okay. Would you come? Let's have everybody raise your hands if you would come to an in-person meeting.
Well, I would come sometimes.
Right. Well, I know, Dean, you're kind of a
So,
special.
because I have a bit of a special situation, and if I may, I was the one that creeped her scope or scoped her creep. I'm not sure how to say it. But I think it's an opportunity to make our club more attractive. We don't have to do any more work on your project. It's really just one of the evaluation criteria when we think about where are we going to meet if it's not the church or something else. We can think about, wow, what would attract new members? And if we have this nice state-of-the-art meeting room like what appears Barbara's sitting in, that'll help our club membership, right? So I don't think,
Indeed.
you're right, I was trying to creep your scope, but I don't think it has to be that way. I used to be a PM also, so.
Kathleen, I am probably the only one who won't be able to come in person because I will be in the UK. So
I think we can forgive
work
that.
around that.
Okay, so that's all I wanted to know. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't go down this path and with this group and then come back and basically there's like one of us at the in-person meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. And Lloyd, you have a speaker of the evening for us.
Yes, I do. Before I say that, though, for me, one of the highlights of this meeting was when Kathleen said she had picked up a new boyfriend during the pandemic and seeing Barbara's eyes literally bug open. but that was classic. Our
Jealous,
winner,
just slightly jealous.
yeah. Our speaker of the evening is Jackie. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all for being there on Saturday, as many of you could make it. And I appreciate all your feedback. It was so helpful. And thank you. And thank you, Mary, for the detailed evaluation. We're going to close out because we are behind